Hello and welcome back to another Politech Media video. This one is going to be a slightly heavier topic because we're going to go into a new law that's looking at being introduced in the UK. One called the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Bill Criminal Conduct, which is a bit of a mouthful. Essentially all that means is that it's a law that will allow a secret agent, someone working in the intelligence agencies or the police, to be able to commit a crime and get away with it. It'll give them the power to do anything from murder, torture, rape, theft, beating someone up, firebombing someone's house. The only limit is their imagination, a bit like the Green Lantern ring. So if we go into the Gov UK, where we can have a look at the fact sheet that they've got available, we'll have a look at the blurb. They call secret agents in the UK, because we're right proper, the Covert Human Intelligence Sources, CHIS. So basically they're saying that they are crucial in preventing and safeguarding victims from many serious crimes, including terrorism, drugs and firearm offences, and child sexual exploitation. Which arguably they're not doing a very good job on, but that's a topic for another video. Participation in criminal conduct is essential and inescapable feature of secret agent use. So if you want to try and stop a drug gang, you may need to infiltrate that drug gang, which means that you may need to sell drugs. I understand that. That makes sense. There's no court in the UK that will prosecute an intelligence agent or a police officer, an undercover police officer or spy cop for doing that. I think there are already provisions in the law for this, but essentially this bill provides an express power to authorise these people to participate in conduct which otherwise would constitute a criminal offence. Basically says that it's not new, something like this already exists, and saying that the authorisation for criminal conduct must be necessary and proportionate and compatible with obligations under the European Court of Human Rights. So it's saying compatible, it doesn't say it has to follow, it doesn't say that it's obviously obligated for us to do it. We're looking here at a licence to kill. A licence to do anything. Getting a licence for an intelligence agency once it's approved, but we'll go into this approval process just right now. You can see the number of public authorities able to authorise this conduct has been restricted to 15 public authorities. So it's been restricted to large public authorities. So you've got anything from the intelligence agencies, so you've got GCHQ, MI5, MI6, the NCA, which is the National Crime Agency, which is the UK's version of the FBI, the police, HMRC, HMR forces, and 10 other public authorities, which actually includes the Gambling Commission and the Environment Agency. So, if you dump toxic sludge into a waterway, Captain Planet will be able to beat the shit out of you. And will be authorised. So the police can authorise someone to break into your house. Authorisation process. They're called Criminal Conduct Authorisation, CCAs, and they may be granted when necessary for a specified purpose in the interests of national security. No definition, no limit to what that could be. For the purposes of preventing or detecting crime or for preventing disorder. I thought that this person was going to commit a hate crime, so I broke into the house and trashed the PC. In the interests of the economic well-being of the UK. That could be anything. Those three things pretty much give carte blanche for anything. It's not specific enough. And they were saying that, authorisations must be proportionate to what is sought to be achieved, where conduct is part of efforts to prevent more serious criminality, where there are no other reasonable or practical means by which the outcome could be achieved. So reading into this, we can go over the independent oversight and safeguards. They're never given or limited authority. It's always going to be specific. I really want to murder this guy. Specifically, it's only going to be this guy. Oh, fine, I won't murder someone else then. Authorisations will be granted by an experienced and highly trained. It doesn't matter if they're an authorised or an officer. It's the government. The bill does not prevent prosecutors from considering a prosecution for any activity outside the authorised activity. Again, I've murdered someone, but it was the correct someone. So I'm fine. Public authorities are bound by the Human Rights Act to comply with the ECHR. It's not actually that specific. It doesn't say that they're obligated to follow it. It's just that they should try to comply with it. And again, it's just saying that they're overseen by an independent investigatory power that can sometimes do inspections. Comments from the Powers Tribunal judgment on existing regime. Doesn't really matter. Exercise with scrupulous care It's the government smelling its own farts and marking its own homework. So we go to justice, so those are the judges in the UK. You can see here that they basically said, it is inconceivable that the government should not be accountable for serious criminal offences committing with its approval. By contrast, equivalent legislation in Canada only affords CIHS a defence to prosecution rather than blanket immunity. So the individual secret agents by intelligence officer will be not really they won't be able to be prosecuted, but the action itself, the government can get in trouble for it, can get taken to court over it. Where this would stop the government from being accountable at all. Let's jump over to Amnesty International UK and have a look at their press release on it. You can see actually, other than the Justice's Amnesty International, a Guardian article, I haven't really seen this around. I only stumbled across this by accident because I was looking into Priti Patel's bullying stuff, and she's one of the sponsors. Her and the Baroness of Trafford are one of the sponsors of this law. So Priti Patel's obviously being taken to tribunal for bullying. She could say it was in the national interest if this was put through. So let's have a look. It's a hugely worrying development, say Amnesty International. It's hugely worrying that we're a step closer to seeing this deeply dangerous bill become law. MPs are signing off on a licence for the government agencies to authorise torture and murder. Giving such disturbing powers to bodies including MI5 and the police could have devastating effects. We are now urging peers who care about the rule of law to introduce urgent amendments before the bill progresses through Parliament. So we have a look at, we've got Shami Chakrabarti, and I think she's a human rights lawyer. She's a baroness. Don't really agree with her on many things, but on this, I think we actually come to some common ground. So as part of a statement on it, she said here, we are told not to worry about those issuing these criminal conduct licenses from inside the relevant agencies themselves, so MI5, giving MI5 the ability to murder someone. They must take into account the requirements of the Human Rights Act. She says here that it's weaker than an obligation. So I could take into account that my son doesn't like pasta with melted cheese on top. But doesn't mean I'm obligated to not give him pasta and cheese if I really need to give him pasta and cheese, because that's all we have in. It's not being bound. They're not bound to the act. It's ridiculous. It's basically saying that if it's amended, it can be amended, the legislation, by external or judicial authorisation of criminal conduct, or by limiting the list of agencies or types of crimes. So yeah, the types of crimes themselves haven't been specified. They haven't said, selling drugs, stealing cars, appropriation of other people's property, breaking and entering. They've not given any specifics as to what the actual crimes themselves that they're giving these blanket immunities for. So there's nothing, I've just sold this woman into sexual slavery so I could get into this sex ring. That's feasible under this law. Just murdered a child to prove, I've just created child pornography because it gets me into this child pornography ring. I've just downloaded child pornography. I've just murdered someone. I've just burned down someone's house. Like I said earlier, the only limit is your imagination. The only limit is the person's imagination, really. Here we go. In the words of former Officer Neil Woods, as a former ruthless undercover cop, I can see many possibilities of this going wrong. This immunity truly changes everything. It invites criminality into a realm uniquely susceptible to it. Once we go down this route, it is very difficult to return. And the Guardian have said, undercover operatives have saved countless lives, including by averting terrorist attacks. It goes into above about the death of Pat Finucane in Belfast, because obviously it's part of the IRA, the troubles that we had in the 60s to mid-90s, I think. Obviously people were tasked by the UK intelligence agencies to infiltrate the IRA. And one of the methods that they did that was by committing these acts that would get them into the IRA. So should these individual people themselves be accountable? Probably not. They're doing actions on behalf of the government as long as they're doing the actions as authorised by the government to do. If they step beyond those bounds, obviously they should be prosecuted, or they are working within good faith of the orders. But the government themselves should be held accountable, and this law stops them from being held accountable. It says here, undercover operatives have saved countless lives, including by averting terrorist attacks. The public understands the need for them and the fact that at times such sources may need to commit offences to maintain their cover. Joining a prescribed organisation is an obvious example, but the risk that they will go much further than they should and act for much less reason than they claim is not merely hypothetical. As Mr. Finucane's family can attest, and so can the women who were raped by the state, in the words of one of those, deceived into a relationship by a spy cop posing as an activist. So essentially there was a police officer posing as a left-wing activist who got into a relationship with a woman as part of his cover, and they conceived a child together. Did she consent to have sex with that man? She didn't. She consented to have sex with the idea of a man that was created as part of the operation to get into the left-wing activist organisation. Now, this new law that would come in would mean that this woman won't be able to sue the state, won't be able to prosecute the state, or get any sort of justice behind that, whereas at the moment she is able to. So if this bill passes, anything from the Gambling Commission to MI5 to the Environment Agency to the police forces themselves can authorise criminal actions against members of the public, and members of the public cannot hold a government to account. This is tyranny. This is the overreach of a government. The government should always be accountable to the people that it serves, which is the general public. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave a comment below. Thank you. This has been Politic Media.